What is the most beautiful piano? Is it a Steinway? Is it a Fazioli? A Bosendorfer? Maybe. Isn't it like most things where the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, or in the case of pianos, in the ears and fingers? The amazing thing about pianos, though, is that the instrument itself is elevated by a pianist who feels an affinity and a connection with it. And this is when a piano, be it a finely worked concert instrument, an old upright, or anything in between, becomes the most beautiful. I want to feature the artist who recently sharpened up my appreciation of this phenomenon. Her name is Ariel Pocock, and she's an amazing jazz pianist. And she recently recorded a small project in Gate Sudi Studios on the 1924 9-foot Chickering. And a week later, Ariel agreed to an interview in which we talk about this alchemy between piano and pianist. We also talk about how she adapts to new pianos when she's on tour, and also gets into just the specifics of this project at hand. Be sure to stay tuned after the interview because I feature one of the tracks that she recorded. I think you'll agree with me that she's a pianist of amazing depth and refinement. And by the way, if you like the content that I'm putting out, please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And without further ado, here's my interview with Ariel Pocock, after which you get to hear the most beautiful piano. So Ariel, thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me a little bit about your recording and about pianos in general.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yeah, so I thought of this conversation when I was listening to the track you recorded last week. And as I like to do, I was listening in my living room to just sort of like road test, my mixes and see how they're sounding. And I was struck with how good the piano sounded. And typically, I'm inclined to pat myself on the back as a recording engineer or piano technician. But what really was most salient in my mind was how good it sounded being played by you. And I mean, obviously, you're very talented and brilliant, but it's also the connection that you seem to have with the instrument. And that kind of led me to this realization that that's when pianos sound the best. And so I guess I was curious, was I correctly perceiving a connection there, or like, what do you find it more generally makes you feel connected to the instrument that you're playing?
Sure. Well, you hit the nail on the head. I do feel a connection to that piano. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to schedule that recording session last week, is because I've played it in larger ensemble settings and I've always really enjoyed it. And I've always thought, oh, it'd be so nice to just get in here and have some time to really explore this instrument and just play around with it. And what I like so much about it specifically is that it's the right balance of warm and bright and smooth, easy to play action. So for jazz pianists especially, I think we like a faster action, because if we're playing faster lines or playing something brighter, it's nice to not have to work so hard. But at the same time, sometimes if you have pianos like Yamahas or Kawais that are known for their faster, crisper action, they can tend to get overly bright and a little bit tinny sounding, especially in the higher registers. And this piano has none of that. It stays quite warm throughout. So I knew that for the kind of songs that I felt like recording for this little project, which were more, intimate and kind of more ballady and more singer-songwritery, it would be really lovely to just explore those softer sounds and those warmer sounds. Mm-hmm. I don't always feel really connected to pianos in that way. And I think some of it is kind of intangible, but I just knew with this one that no matter how I went into it, whether I came with a lot of stuff really, really worked out, which I spoiler, I didn't, or if I just came in and gave myself a little time to sort of explore and try some different sounds, it would kind of support me in that and sound nice no matter what, which I think I'm really happy with how it came out. So just knowing that you can trust the instrument to kind of sound nice in whatever register you end up playing and not having to work around the instrument shortcomings, that's so exciting as a pianist.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I did something with you that I rarely do. I think I've done one other time where I just
said, listen, you know how to press R. You know, I've got the mic set up, and I'll be on the premises, but you just, you know, be in your own space. And
Right.
And I think that, I don't know how you felt, but maybe had I been in the room, you know, you would made it, maybe the recording to me has such an intimacy to it and a vulnerability. And so, I mean, I like to not get in the way of those things when I'm in the room, but I think the project is sort of interesting for that it was just yourself in the room.
Yeah, it was so nice getting to just be in there alone. No offense, of course, but I really appreciated that you kind of intuited that would be really nice. Specifically because I wasn't even totally sure what I'd end up recording, and I knew that if I had someone in the room, I'd feel more pressured to, you know, do a take and move on and do a take and move on. And I ended up doing, you know, multiple takes and just saying, yeah, I'm going to scrap that, and not having that pressure of needing to, you know, stay on track or,
Right.
you know, do things a certain amount of times was really, really nice and really freeing. I've never had that in a session before. And it was also nice not doing it with, you know, if I had my own equipment set up, that's a little more stressful too. So knowing that if something did go wrong, I could just say, Ben, come help. That was really great too.
Well, and I was, you know, putzing around the house, and I was reading, and I did a lot of things while you recorded that. And I was thinking, wow, she's in there for a while, you know?
I was.
Like when you're out doing, when you're not in that sort of musical space, it just seemed like a great passage of time. And, but it's limited to four tunes. So yeah, you must have done quite a lot of musical soul searching while, you know, in this time.
I did. I got stuck on one tune. I was convinced I wanted it to do a string dampening thing, you know, on the intro. And I liked it, but I just kept hitting my hands on the the music stand. So it'd be this beautiful intro and really cool, and then you'd hear clank in the middle. So I did so many takes of that, and finally I said, you know, I think this is just not going to happen. But it was fun to try, and it was one of those things that had I been on more of a tight schedule or maybe had a producer in the room, I never would have, you know, explored that, because I would have been a little bit self-conscious. So it was nice to just get to say, well, that's okay, that didn't work, but it was fun to try it.
Right.
You know, next take.
Well, I want to let our viewers get to the music, but I also feel like I could talk with you forever. I guess one question that I had is, you know, I know you've done a lot of touring, and do you have, you know, we've already touched on this, the fact that you know, sometimes there are instruments that you have to fight with, and you know, we all know we have to respond to the instrument on hand as players of hard to move instruments, as pianists are.
Right.
Can't bring our own typically. Do you have techniques to come to terms with the instruments that you are either treated to or subjected to?
That's a good question. And I think that is the right terminology, coming to terms with whatever instrument you have. I think you can generally tell within a few minutes of playing a piano where its sweet spot is. And even great pianos will have a greater spot, you know. So I generally like to, if I am able to warm up a little bit, just play something in each register of the piano in each range area and see what feels the best, where, if there's any sticky notes, if there's any part of the action that's stiffer, maybe because of humidity, if we're outside or whatever, and just kind of take note of that and know that I should maybe steer clear of that. And sometimes it can even be sort of a, you know, sometimes it's a good challenge to force yourself to be limited to a certain part of the piano, especially if you're playing with the instrumentation that might not blend itself so well to that. So for example, one instance that comes to mind is playing like duo with a bass with a piano that did not have a very good high end. So maybe something was wrong with the high end. So you're limited to the lower register, which, if you can imagine, you know, playing with the bass, generally you'd stay out of, and having to think, well, how can I be, you know, appropriately comping and playing in this lower register without getting in the way, but still not using this kind of icky higher register. So sometimes musical challenges like that, or you can kind of reframe it as like, well, let's see if I can make this interesting.
Right. Well, and I'm sure you know more about this than I do, but you know, like one of the greatest selling solo piano albums ever, Keith Jarrett's Cologne Concert. was partially his response to a subpar instrument.
Right, right.
You know, I think there was some confusion about which piano to put on the stage to move in,
Yeah.
you know, and it was too late. And so he, it's just it's interesting to read about that, because he really was responding to that challenge, but it ended up being just a seminal album, you know, that so many have enjoyed and bought and listened to. And
right. And I mean, we've all heard the stories of Keith being kind of a legendary diva with pianos, but to know that that can still
refuses to come to Gate City Studios.
I know, right? To know that that can still spark such a, you know, work of genius is great. But I think there are a lot of cases like that where you hear people playing on instruments that are maybe not what they had envisioned, and they just work around it, which is always interesting to see.
Right, right. Well, so lastly, where can people find this project that we've been talking about, that you just recorded last week?
This project will be up on a SoundCloud page if they just search for my name.
Okay,
and
cool.
We'll call it the Gate City Studios sessions.
Okay, well, I was wondering if you had a name, and how, of course, I'm pleased that my studio's
that's what it is.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
All right. Well, Ariel, thank you so much for talking to us and shedding light on you know, your approach to the piano, and I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Ben. My pleasure.